President, I move notice of motion private business 3, standing in my name, namely that I have leave to introduce an act to establish a walking and cycling commissioner and for other purposes.
Seconded.
Most of the questions say aye, against say no. I think the ayes have it. Bring it up.
The bill for an act to establish a walking and cycling commissioner and for other purposes.
Mr Sims.
I move that this bill now be read a second time. Thank you, Mr President. The purpose of this bill is to establish a walking and cycling commissioner to encourage walking and cycling as modes of travel and to promote health, environmental, social and economic benefits, and to prepare and promote strategies to make walking and cycling inclusive for everybody here in South Australia. Mr President, at a time when places around the world are rapidly investing in cycling infrastructure and incentivising that infrastructure and active transport, South Australia is lagging behind. In London and Manchester, where walking and cycling commissioners have been appointed, there are plans to transition from passive to active transport and to create sustainable cities of the future. And indeed, London has had a walking and cycling commissioner in place since 2016. Bold targets such as 80% off all trips into London to be walking, cycling or public transport by 2041 are being set, and similarly in Greater Manchester there is a goal of 50% by 2040. Last July, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and I'm not usually a fan of his, Mr President, but he has done some good things when it comes to cycling, committed $2 billion for a walking and cycling revolution to deliver thousands of miles of new protected bike lanes, cycle training for children and adults, and the first ever zero-emission transport city. Scotland is also taking the opportunity, coming off the back of COVID-19 lockdowns, to restructure their transport system to prioritise health, the community and the environment. And their Active Nation Commissioner has stated that the restructure is not anti-car or anti-economy, but rather it is pro-people. And that's the thing I think we need to remember when it comes to transport policy in our own state. This is about being pro-people, protecting our environment and advancing community health and well-being. In Austin, Texas, Adelaide's sister city, we've seen more affordable and accessible and safe transport choices due to the fact that 14% of constituents' annual income was spent on travel costs. Adelaide is not far off this number at a staggering 13.7%. Resulting action in Texas, including investment in bikeways, has seen families downgraded from 2 to 1 households, saving thousands of dollars and therefore increasing their spending capacity. And that's money that can be spent on our local shops and our retail sectors and in other struggling industries. So why is this needed here in South Australia, Mr President? Well, Adelaide is no longer the 20-minute city, with commuters spending up to 60% of their morning commute in congested traffic. We also have more car parks per capita than any other capital city. Adelaide is in danger of becoming a city in a car park rather than a city in a park. It seems ludicrous that South Australia spends the least on cycling infrastructure, 0.6% of road spending, in the country, spending just $4 million in 2015 to 16 on cycling infrastructure, meanwhile spending $569 million on roads. $4 million on cycling to $569 million on roads. More money on roads and more money on parking is not the solution. We need a rethink, and we need to rethink the way that travel occurs in our state, and my hope is that the establishment of a walking and cycling commissioner would be a good first step. We've already seen the City Council fail to implement the East-West Bikeway despite years of discussion and despite the commitment of state government funding. And this has failed the 2,000 cyclists that enter the east and west sides of the city each workday and the 60% of the population who would ride and cycle more if separating cycling infrastructure was delivered. And they need this infrastructure for their safety, Mr President. Not only would this improve the health of our communities by encouraging physical exercise, it would also free up parks in the city as commuters turn to cycling instead of cars. It's time for us to have a strong, independent advocate that can make the case for government investment and policy change to encourage active transport. At this time of climate emergency, at this time of climate crisis, it is vitally important that we promote active transport, and the establishment of an active, dedicated commissioner could be the reset on transport policy that our state so desperately needs. Thank you, Mr. President.
The